Now let's get into actually finally painting some of these fine displacement maps. So here's, again, welcome to Mario 2.0. The layout is pretty much the same. There's a couple new icons you may see up here, a couple new ones up here. For the most part, I'm not going to go through any of those. I'm just going to go through what I kind of use in my process. So we kind of went through the layers tab. There's the shaders tab and the channels tab. Every other tab is pretty much the same that I use. The brushes, the painting, paint buffer, all that. Actually, let me reset some of this stuff. So yeah, all this stuff is pretty much the same. If I go back to my image manager, what I've done is loaded the displacement maps, the skin scans that we graded from before. You may notice there's a couple ones I didn't load. They were the jowls, I think they're called. I didn't load those because I didn't really find them very useful. The pores are kind of ambiguous, and I kind of just mixed and matched some of these pores to finish off the rest of the face, which I'll show you. So I want to make sure that I am in my base layer. I have my palette of this base layer selected, so this is what I'm painting into, and I'm in my fine disp channel. And this was originally the color channel from the original demo. I just renamed it. So ready to paint. I'm going to use the paint through tool. I'm going to grab the forehead like so. And right now what I want to concentrate on is just the broad strokes. And I'm going to grab a organic brush and just start laying down some of this paint. Again, I'm not worried about around the eyes, I'm not worried about the ears, just worried about getting some of these broad strokes for the forehead. And I'm using this brush because it's got a very nice organic edge. It's a hard edge brush, and it's going to blend really nicely with the other scans that I'll be using. Again, I'm just gesturally laying this down. Now sometimes when I'm laying the stuff down, I will employ the warp tool to try and move some of this stuff into place. For instance, this eyebrow area here, just so we get that right on that edge so it fits a bit better. And bake. There we go. First projection. And as you can see, you also may notice the UVs are slightly different. These are the UVs that I originally did before I did that UV demo. Same principles apply. We have more than enough resolution. And I just did that extra demo so we can actually go through it. But these are the original UVs that I did when I first painted the character. And I'm happy with that projection, so let's move on. I'm going to grab the other side of the forehead and do the same thing. Try to line up some of the landmarks. Best I can. You may notice this crease in the forehead is not really lining up, but that's okay. We'll fix that in a second. I just want to get the again, the broad strokes down. Going to erase back some of this stuff. Like so. There's some really nice detail here. So for this front area, going to just extend this brow area here and paint that back, just so we get that crease. We may decide to take that crease out later, but it's a nice feature that we're going to leave in for now. I'm going to kind of get this brow ridge here. There we go. So already we're getting some really nice variation on this forehead just from some basic projections. And as you can see, it starts becoming very powerful. You guys will realize how powerful these maps are once you start getting into them. So let's grab this cheek area. I'm just going to try to line up the landmarks. So this nasal labial fold here, I'm just going to try to line up like so. Again, not too worried about around the eyes just yet. Just going to lay this down. Like so. Awesome. And now I'm going to take the warp tool and just nudge some of this into place. See what I can get. I'm not happy with that fold, but what I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry about the lips for now. I'm just roughing it in like so. Happy with this. I'm going to bake this down and then come back to this fold again. Reproject that area so it lines up a bit better. As you can see, this brush is really nice for getting a kind of a staggered edge. So it blends pretty organically. I'm pretty happy with that. So moving on. Again, going to try to line up the nasal labial fold. Now this scan is a bit different. It's kind of warped a bit differently, so it's a little bit trickier, but that's okay. Because we're going to do a little bit more cleanup and manipulation. But very quickly, we're getting all this really wonderful detail. Again, these Langer lines. And just all this wonderful pore variation. It's so difficult to mimic in the old way. So I'm going to grab this section here. Just move this guy up a bit. Now this warp tool is really nice because it doesn't blur the transformation like it it does in Photoshop. It's a pretty powerful warp. And again, you can change the cage pretty easily just with the up and down arrow. It's a very powerful tool. And I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to bake this. And already we're getting some really good things going on here on this face. All this poor detail. It's just so difficult to mimic with just color maps. So let's go for the nose. I want the nose to be a bit larger in terms of pore detail, just to get that sense of weathering and age. Like so. I'm going to line some of this up here because I really like this wrinkle detail. Let me get in there. Just going to bring that all the way around. So obviously this face scan that we have obviously doesn't match the character we're painting. So this is a really good exercise in kind of retrofitting what you have and making it work on the models that you're given. Because a lot of the times we will have to do this in production. We're not given ideal images or ideal models, and we just have to basically make it work. I'm going to go to the UVs and check it out. If there's any stretching, paint that in. And a lot of times I'll just rough in cleanup areas like this and then check it out back on the model and see how it's working. Or I can go to the ortho UV view and see at the same time. See what's going on while I rough this in. Or just go back here and put the rest in. And then clean it up on this side. Because a lot of these areas are a bit forgiving. I do want detail in there, but it's not going to be the end of the world if it doesn't match up exactly. So I'm just making sure I get full, clean, even coverage. And then from here, go back to the mouth and project some of this back in. Just being very wary of the scale, making sure the scale is similar. Again, not too worried about the lips at this point. Just roughing it in. Like so. The other advantage of painting the pores first and painting them independent of the color maps is that there's a bit of a forgiving degree of detail because you're doing them independently. So there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of make up on the fly and decide artistically how you want it to go on the fly in the displacement, and then that will carry over into the color maps because we're using these displacements later on to help feed more detail into the color. Go back to the UVs, find these nostrils, and just give them a quick paint just for some coverage. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Because we do want detail in there, just in case there's a shot where we see right up the nose, where sometimes that does happen. We want to be prepared. And let's check for any seams. Let's just quickly rough it in. Again, doesn't have to be perfect because this isn't an area that we're going to spend a lot of time looking at. Just need to make sure it's fully covered and seamless. There we go. So very quickly, we're already getting some really cool things going on. There wasn't a lot of time to paint that nose. Didn't take a lot of time at all to paint most of this face, really. So I'm going to end the recording now and then pick it back up, and we're going to continue painting this face, going down into the chin, the neck, doing the rest of the head because we don't have skin for that. So showing you quick ways to get that in there, and the ears, and then finish up the displacements for this.